What is going on, Trash Talkers? We are back with another episode for you. Today we are going to discuss the major breaking news around the NFL that several star players have chosen to forego the 2020-2021 season and will exercise their right to opt out of playing. We also discuss the Jamal Adams trade from the Jets to the Seahawks and debate who won the trade. Plus, we break down Joe Burrow's rookie deal with the Bengals and debate whether he will be the answer at the quarterback position for Cincinnati. Finally, there is a growing belief that MLB shortened season may end up being canceled in light of the rash of positive COVID-19 tests coming from the Miami Marlins organization, and we discuss what Commissioner Manfred should be doing. All that and much more coming your way right now. Nick, how is it going? How have you been? How was your week?
My week kind of got derailed today, to say the least.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Went into work and saw news that not only did Dante Hightower for the Patriots opt out of their contract, but so did Patrick Chung. This Patriots season was down. Cam Newton got signed, and now we're back down again.
So honestly, I don't think it's just the Patriots thing. No, we're looking at the Ravens, who lost Andre Smith. Chiefs lost Laurent Duvernay-Tardif. The Texans, Eddie Vanderdoes. Bears, Eddie Goldman. So many other teams, so many other players are choosing to opt out. We saw just a slew of them today, and the NFL has extended the deadline. It was originally for August 1st, which is this upcoming Saturday. They pushed it to next Monday for players to make their decision whether to opt out for the season. I want to jump right into it. Do you think that we're going to see like more star players choose to opt out of the season based on what we're seeing so far?
Yeah, I definitely expect to see more players opt out. They actually just extended the deadline to Monday, August 3rd instead of it being Saturday, August 1st. So I think that given more time, I think more players are going to decide to opt out, especially after you see big names today. Eddie Goldman, as you mentioned, Dante Hightower. Like, these are big names in the NFL that have big impacts for their team. There's going to be other players out there that I think are going to see this and not be afraid to opt out of the season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you look at the newly acquired wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles, Marquis Goodwin, who was in the Super Bowl last year with the 49ers. And, you know, the Eagles were looking to do something, and he was a major part of that. And now he's gone. And, you know, you're talking about key players who are standing up and saying, we don't like the way the league is handling this. We don't appreciate the fact that our concerns aren't being dealt with by Commissioner Roger Goodell, and the NFL office needs to do something about it. I mean, out of all the sports, right? The the shutting down of sports happened as baseball was getting started in the middle of the NBA season, in the middle of the NHL season. The NFL had finished their season and had all off season to start preparing for this, and they did little to nothing about it. They haven't talked about bubble cities. They haven't talked about, you know, shrinking the schedule or just all they talked about was getting rid of a preseason and, you know, just kind of playing it off as, you know, time is going to heal all wounds, if you will. And I don't think that's the right case. I mean, what do you think?
Well, yeah, I definitely think that's part of it, that the NFL has been dragging their feet with this. But I also think you have to take into consideration the numbers are starting to go up. There are more cases, and a lot that's just going to trigger a lot of people to stay at home, stay quarantined, and to be safe. But you also have to look at they removed the preseason schedule. That affects a lot of players, especially older players who need to get back into that mode, who need to get loose again. And you don't want to do that in a regular season game. You want to have some time to get going again. And I think with the loss of the preseason, the loss of being in the facilities, talking with your coaches face to face and your new teammates, on top of the COVID that's still going on, very prevalent, and the NFL not doing much until recent with COVID. All of that combined, it just creates a huge mess, and I understand why a lot of players decide to opt out. It makes sense for some of these players, especially the ones that are at risk. Right. So, and now we see what's going on with the MLB. The protocols for the MLB were lackluster. They didn't have any bubble cities, and I think that without bubble cities in the NFL, you can expect a similar result, or you can infer a similar result. So I think that people are going to look at the MLB and think, hey, that's definitely a potential for us, and I don't want to take that risk.
Yeah, and the one thing that is happening right now with players opting out, I understand a lot of you guys. You listen to us, you listen to ESPN, you listen to Fox Sports, and you have questions about these things. We're going to try to answer what we think that you guys are going to be confused on. The first thing to note is that a player who opts out, they fall into one of two categories. The first category is that they just don't want to play the season uh, amid their concerns. They have their own personal reasons. Fine, they get a stipend of $150,000 for the year. Their contract is basically put on hold by a year, and they return to their team with the contract that they signed prior. So Dante Hightower, his cap number no longer applies to this year. It'll go to next year, and everything will be pushed off by a year. Dan Vitale, who the Patriots signed in the offseason, the fullback, he signed a 1-year deal, but that's going to be pushed off to next year now that he opted out. And they're going to get $150,000 from the league, from the teams, however the league structured the payment. But they're going to get 150,000. Then you have the second structure, which is players like Marcus Cannon, who have a pre-existing condition that is basically stopping them from being able to play. Marcus Cannon, for those of you who don't know, the Patriots starting right tackle, has undergone cancer treatments multiple times. He's a survivor of cancer, and as laid out by the NFLPA and agreed to by the NFL themselves, they have set standards that include what he has gone through as a pre-existing condition that allows him to get $350,000 for the year because of his pre-existing condition. He can't play, so it's not like he really had a choice. And you're going to see some other players that had similar instances as well that are going to follow suit. And so when you hear the numbers being thrown around, not every case is considered the same, and it is up to the NFLPA to fight for the players to get what they're looking for, but it's also up to the NFL to decide whether the pre-existing conditions actually warrant, the 350,000 versus the 150,000.
Yeah, it's a very interesting situation now because I mean I think this whole week so far we've had the NFL top 100 being unveiled,
Yep.
and it just so happens that last night two of the top free agents that are still available were unveiled on top 100: Logan Ryan and Jadeveon Clowney. And now we've got players that are opting out of the NFL season for 2020. So now these guys were just put into the spotlight once again, and I think now we're going to see a surge of free agent talent just being scooped up left and right because these teams are coming into a lot of cash and have a lot of holes to fill in their roster. So I expect a lot of these holes that we probably thought they're going to get filled once a player gets hurt during the season. They might not even play the season. I think they're going to be on a team, at least most of them will be on a team within the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I mean, the Bears and the Jets are possibly looking at Jadeveon Clowney. You have the Ravens and the Patriots who are going to start kicking the tires on a player like DeMar Dotson. Logan Ryan is still available at cornerback. Everson Griffin has mutual interest from the Packers that they're going to possibly talk about and see if they can get a deal done there. I mean, there's so many different things that players opting out creates cap space for teams, which allows them to sign free agents that were once thought of as not able to sign or should. A lot of teams, they had their draft, they had who they could get in free agency, and that's pretty much it. It should also be noted right before we recorded this podcast, Devin Funchess, the newly acquired wide receiver for the Packers, has opted out of the season, so he's not going to be around either. So again, that opens up a wide receiver spot in Green Bay, and there's plenty of things. I mean, AB, somebody's going to be calling him soon. I can guarantee it with everything that's going on.
Well,
There's just so many.
I actually find that really interesting that Devin Funchess opted out because if you remember in the draft, the Packers opted to not draft a wide receiver
That's right.
for Aaron Rodgers, and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna fix it by go getting this guy Devin Funchess, who was just injured all last year for the Colts and had a mediocre couple of years in Carolina."
Right.
And so they were like, okay, do your best with this guy, and now you don't even get a shot to try out with him. And now Aaron Rodgers coming out and saying, how pissed he was about the Jordan Love draft situation, which we all knew,
Right.
but he's finally being vocal about it. I think it's really interesting how this is all playing out, and I think that it's going to have a huge impact on the way the season goes, if there is a season, because that's a huge maybe. I can't believe that this is happening right now. We saw Duvernay Tardif, like he was the first one last week who said he wasn't going to play, and that's because he's in Canada. He has his doctorate, like he's a PhD.
Well, he's working on the front lines.
He's a doctor.
He basically said he wasn't going to play because if he contracted COVID, he wanted it to be from helping patients, not from playing football.
Right,
and I
right.
understand that was a special circumstance.
Right, and I expected that, but to see it from all these players, I didn't see this one bit. Because we see a lot of players that contract COVID. I mean, just about all of them have been asymptomatic up until this point. And so the risk of getting it is really low. And I know they have loved ones at home that don't want to get infected, but it's just surprising that a lot of these guys have come to the conclusion on their own. And we saw it firsthand with the Patriots right off the bat. They had 5 players, and the first 5 out of 6 players to opt out were from the Patriots, and that's just about 10% of your starting roster right there. Like that's just an absolute killer for an organization. And some people are speculating that it could be an average of 5 players from each team that opt out, which could be absolutely it's mind-boggling and would be devastating for everybody. I mean, if you think about it now, there's already a huge situation because in the AFC at least, you've got the Patriots that are out one of their best defensive players, and you've got the Chiefs who are down their starting right guard, and you've got the Ravens who are down. Not only they lost their right guard to retirement this year, but they just lost their right tackle who opted out due to COVID. So now you've got all these top tier teams in the AFC who are Super Bowl contenders that are now
Bills lose Star
Latula, yeah, huge run stuffer for the Buffalo Bills. Like it's just these hits. It may be one player, but they have such a huge impact for these teams. Like, how are the Ravens going to run the same? How are the Chiefs going to run the same? How are the Patriots going to run their defense? How are the Bills going to be as dominant on defense as they were? Like, it's just nothing's going to be the same. This is having a huge impact. I'm surprised right now. What I call the 2 twin towers, the Saints and the Buccaneers, are holding strong right now. I think they're the 2 strongest lineups, and no one on their team has budged. So
the only thing that I can think of is the starting left tackle for the Buccaneers wasn't sure whether he was going to report, but it was reported today that he will, in fact, report. I think he had a conversation with Bruce Arians and Jason Licht, and then he also spoke with Tom Brady and some of the guys on the team and decided that he was going to play. But I want to just revisit this for a few more seconds. I mean, the fact is that this I don't think we're at the end. I think there's a lot more players that we're going to hear from before next Monday, and we'll get a full list all situated. And we're if you guys want to know who on your team isn't going to be around, check out our website. We'll have a list for you when it's all said and done. And our website's in our Twitter bio. It's going to be in the description, so you guys are all set there. But the fact of the matter is that the NFL has a major issue on its hands, and to say that they can weather the storm. I mean, what happens if somebody like Patrick Mahomes opts out of the season, or Lamar Jackson, or Russell Wilson, or some of these big name players. If one of these guys ever opted out, I mean, the NFL has a major issue on its hands. And I don't understand what Roger Goodell and the office in New York is doing. I just don't understand. They have had the longest amount of time to come up with a solution. They have had the world's information at their fingertips. They can consult the doctors, they consult teams. They have almost an like a they have as much money as you could possibly want to try to figure something out. And it, at the end of the day, they came up with absolutely nothing. And I have to throw the blame on Roger Goodell and the NFL. I really do. I can't imagine that we have a full NFL season. And this, we got rumblings of this a while back. If you remember, the McCourty twins have their own podcast, and they talked with some of their teammates about this. And some of the teammates have already talked about, their concerns. And Dante Hightower was one of them. He spoke on it last week. He just had his baby about 2 weeks ago, not even.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
And at this point, he was like, I'm not putting my family in jeopardy. This is a time where NFL players are going to be needful, and they're going to be selfish. And I think they need to be. They need to be selfish. They need to think about themselves. They need to think about their families. They need to make the right decision for them. It's not about winning a championship this year. As much as it would pain me, if too many players start opting out, they might have to think about scrapping the season altogether. I really we're a little far from that right now, but that might be where we're headed.
Which is a horrible situation to be. I mean, I can't imagine losing football. Like, it's the biggest sport in our country, and
sure.
I just can't imagine us losing it. I mean, there's already talks about losing college football. There's schools that aren't going to be returning in the fall, and that's going to hinder the teams returning to practice and playing the season. And on top of that, we might lose the NFL season. Like, people are absolutely going to go insane if they're locked up in their houses from COVID and can't watch football. Like, that's just, I'm going to go insane. I know that. I know you will too. Like, we live and die for these sports. Like, this is what we love. This is what we're here for. And to go without it, we just can't. Like, we're just
and again, we also understand that these players are human. They have lives, they have families, and they have to do what's right for them. So just because we're upset that the sport is going to be could possibly be gone doesn't mean we don't understand why, or we don't agree with what it is. We're just upset. I mean, you can have two different things be true at the same time. I think that, and just before anybody starts bashing us in the comments or on social, I just want that to be put out there. We do understand. We're human, and if we were in that situation, we would want to make the right decision for us. We wouldn't want to do it for everybody else.
Yeah, it's just it's a very tough situation for everybody involved, including the fans. And I think that a lot of people who have been cooped up in their house for the last 4 months are getting extremely tired of it and have nothing to look forward to. They're getting really agitated, and a lot of people are looking forward to the NFL season, getting ready with fantasy football. Like, this is going to be huge. If you can't have fantasy football, can't have football to watch on Sundays and Mondays and Thursdays, that's what gets us through our weeks, especially through the winter. Like, it's just, it really annoys me to think of that it's a possibility there might not be football this season.
And again, I put it on the NFL. I put it on Roger Goodell.
100%.
They had way too much time to try to figure something out. I mean, we talked about it just in our own time about possibly going to cities like Dallas or New Orleans, or you name the hub city, and you could have central hubs of teams that could be there. And I know Las Vegas is supposed to be unveiling their new stadium this year. This is a terrible time to be doing that, unfortunately. I feel bad for Raiders Nation, but there's really not much more we can do about that.
there really is no reason this should go off without a hitch because, like you said, plenty of time. You had so much time to see what other sports have been doing. You can take the UFC as a perfect example of somebody who was able to pull off an event in Las Vegas without anything going wrong, and they're going to continue doing it. California said they're allowing sports to go. Like you said, create hub cities. You don't have to just have two. You can have five. You can have them in all the major cities around the country, and you don't need to have, it's just not that hard. You go to a hotel, you go to the stadium, you stay away from everybody, and I just I don't know like it's not that hard to put these protocols in place. There's still plenty of time. Many of like we even saw the MLB come back 3 weeks after they decided that they're going to actually have a season. They had enough time to put in protocols that, for the most part, have worked so far. And the NFL has much more time than that. They've already been working on it. So I think there's no reason they can't figure out a perfect solution that will enable us to have a football season.
I don't have much faith in the NFL.
Well, that's the issue. Is
most of the
we
things
can't trust who's at the top. That's it.
I agree. It's not Adam Silver. It's not somebody that I trust that's holding it down. It's Roger Goodell, who at times has shown that he struggles with making the correct calls, especially under pressure. And I can point to several different opportunities where he's had that, where he could have, made a statement or done something the right way, and in fact he just let time kind of go by, and he tried to let time heal all wounds, and it didn't work out for him. I don't want to beat a dead horse with this topic too much. I will say the NFLPA announced today that a total of 21 NFL players have collectively have tested positive for COVID-19. In the grand scheme of things, that's not terrible, but we wish them much health and a speedy recovery. On the second side of things, these teams, these players need to make sure that they're also doing everything in their power to make sure that they are not, put in a situation where they could possibly contract it. And somebody like Lou Williams in the NBA going to a gentleman's club outside of a bubble, you need to make better, smarter decisions than doing. You can't be going out to clubs. You can't be going out and dancing and having a great time. If you want to do that, opt out of the season. Go play next year. Don't put your teammates, don't put their families in harm's way, because at the end of the day, it's not just about you. It's about everybody in that locker room, and it's about the NFL as a sport and as a community. I mean, there's so much else on the line. Before we move on, Nick, is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
No, there really isn't. I'm really just trying to stay optimistic right now, but as the names keep coming out, I'm losing hope for this season.
Well, there was there are some people that might have lost hope already, and I think that might have come over the weekend, or that was the Jamal Adams trade. So if you've been living under a rock, you may not have heard, but disgruntled safety, All-Pro, Pro Bowl safety Jamal Adams for the New York Jets, formerly of the New York Jets, has been traded to the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks receive Jamal Adams and a 2022 fourth-round pick. The Jets receive safety Bradley McDougall, a 2021 first-round pick, a 2022 first-round pick, and a 2021 third-round pick. So the Jets receive a Hall of pick plus a replacement safety. The Seahawks receive one of the best secondary players in all of football, still on his rookie contract, and they get a fourth-round pick at the end of it. Nick, who do you think won this trade?
I mean, that's an interesting question. I haven't actually thought about who won this trade, but initial thoughts, I'm going to give it to the Seahawks, because they're a team that has been pretty close to getting back to the Super Bowl the last few years, and their defense has been, okay. It's been Bobby Wagner holding everything together, and now that Jamal Adams is there, they're rebuilding the Legion of Boom, and I think this is a huge step in the right direction for them. I think that, if you think about the 2 first-round picks that they're giving up, They're going to be late first round picks at best. I think that Jamal Adams is a huge. I think he's the best safety in the league personally, and I think he's gonna be an absolute terror in the NFC West. I think it's gonna make the lives of Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyler Murray and Jared Goff living nightmare. And I have higher hopes for Jamal Adams, and I expect him to be even better now that he's on a more talented roster. And I expect I see the Jets. They have two more picks. They have 4 picks in the next 2 years, but I still see them as a rebuilding team, and they've been a rebuilding team, for the last 10 years.
2011.
Yeah, exactly. It's they just want to stay in this position. They don't want to take a player and build around them. This was the perfect player to build around. Yeah, he's a safety, but they had some pieces. They had Leonard Williams. They just needed a few linebackers, and they would have been there. They could have used maybe a corner, but they were so close. And I just think they're derailing it. Joe Douglas is doing a horrible job, and the reason is he doesn't want to pay Jamal Adams, and that's a huge problem. You got to pay some players on your team. Everybody has to do it at some point. Even the Patriots. Bill Belichick is paying Stephon Gilmore $18 million this season. So everybody's getting paid at some point. And Jamal Adams is going to get his, but not with the Jets. And we've already heard that the beef between him and Adam Gase, it didn't lead to this trade. It wasn't Jamal Adams talking on social media out against Adam Gase that led to this. But I think that if you're not gonna treat a star player the way he should be treated financially, I think that then you need to move on from him. Like, you don't deserve to have that player at that point.
So I disagree with a lot of points that you made, but I'm gonna say overall, I think the Jets won this trade. They lost the generational talent in Jamal Adams, and I'm willing to concede that fact. But they have 4 first-round picks in the next 2 years to kind of figure all that out. On top of an extra third-round pick, which we all understand that these drafts are getting deeper. The third round is becoming more and more valuable. And they didn't give up much for it outside of Jamal Adams himself. So while I understand that he's a generational talent at safety, a safety is not something that you build around a roster around. And I think that's where Joe Douglas was coming from. And I think that's where the Jets organization was coming from. As great as he was as a player, he became disruptive. He became toxic, and he still had team control. I mean, there's not much you can do as a player when your team has the years on your contract and the control over your contract. And he soured his relationship with a lot of players on the team with the way he was acting, and not just acting in the locker room, because I haven't heard anything about that, but acting outward, so for the public to see. He let this all play out in the open, and I think that is the cardinal sin of any player in any sport. You want to keep everything in house, because the moment it leaks out, there is a negative stigma that will follow you for the rest of your career. And I believe that Jamal Adams is going to have that stigma, especially now. If things don't work out in Seattle, or if they don't start winning, and who knows, if they don't want to pay him at the end of his career, or at the end of his contract rather, I really don't understand. How, I think the Jets won. I don't understand how you can say that the Seahawks won, but I want to address a couple of your points before I hand it over back to you. You talked about how the Seahawks have been close, and Bobby Wagner has been anchoring that defense, which is true. He's the unsung hero of the Seattle Seahawks in every way, shape, and form. But this doesn't address their offensive need at wide receiver. It doesn't address their offensive line issues. There are so many more things that they need to address. And now you're taking a player who isn't like they have things that they need to do with their cap space in the future that they're not going to be able to do, because the idea is now they're going to have to pay him based on everything they gave up. And this is the going rate for a first rounder. I mean, if you look at what the Texans gave up for Laramie Tunsil, if you look at what the Seahawks themselves gave up for Jadeveon Clowney, I mean, this is the going rate for a first round pick that is disgruntled and wants to leave, or that is on the chopping block. This is exactly what you get. So I think that the Jets got a haul for a player that no longer wanted to be there. I would say the only place that the Jets need to really fix themselves is that they also need to get rid of Adam Gase. The coach has clearly been a divisive figure within that locker room, and he's not the only player to have talked about how the coach is souring his experience with the organization. And we got that from as soon as Gase was hired. It was looking like Le'Veon Bell could end up right out the door. The star acquisition, and it's been nothing but an issue since he got there. And I said from the beginning, and honest to God, I have said from the beginning, Adam Gase had little to no success in Miami. And I don't understand what he proved to Jets ownership that he should get the head coaching job in New York. I just don't understand it. So if somebody wants to try to tell me and try to inform me of what he has done, I mean, outside of his time in Chicago and Jay Cutler, I don't think anybody can really point to a success story.
I mean, I agree with that sentiment. I think he's destroying Sam Darnold's career. I think that's for damn sure. But I think that I don't think that Jamal Adams is going to be a bust for the Seattle. I think Seattle will pay him, and I don't think that's gonna hurt them at all. Seattle. I believe the latest. I can't remember who the latest highest paid safety was, but it was in the ballpark of $16 million. I don't expect him to get more than $18 million a year on average. And I think that's perfectly fine. You're paying Russell Wilson, you're paying Bobby Wagner, and you're going to end up paying Jamal Adams in a few years. You've got him this year, you've got him on a fifth-year option, and then you can franchise tag him the year after. So you've got him for at least 3 seasons. So I think you're perfectly fine. That's going to get you, pay off the price that you paid. And I think he's going to lead to a lot of success. They've been extremely close to getting there the last few years. They're just in one of the hardest, if not the hardest, division in the NFL.
I understand that, but they're also not a safety away. A safety is not something that will...
Jamal Adams is more than a safety. He plays like a middle linebacker. He plays all over the place. He is Isaiah Simmons before we have Isaiah Simmons.
I understand that, but he's also... okay, when you look at the hierarchy of team needs that are going to propel you into the playoffs and possible Super Bowl, you have your quarterback, which they have in Russell Wilson. Then you need a pass rusher, the guy who gets after quarterbacks. They don't have that. Okay, so now you have to focus. They thought they were going to have that in Clowney. That did not work for them. Okay, so you have a gap there. Then you need somebody who's going to catch the ball. They don't have that. So, okay, I'm not, you can say they have DK Metcalf all you want. He's not a star number 1 wide receiver. He's just not. Until he proves me otherwise, he's not. So you have 2 gaps now. Then you need a defensive play caller. Okay, they have Bobby Wagner, one of the best middle linebackers in the NFL. Given. Okay, then you need somebody who can protect on the back end. That's where Jamal Adams comes in. He is the 5th guy in succession that they need to build a championship winning organization. They have 2 major holes they need to fix before going out and giving up everything that they gave up to go get him. I mean, they're not going to have a first round pick or a third round pick next year and a first round pick the year after that.
They're not that many pieces away. If they don't need those first round picks, they're not going to be that necessary for them. They're not going to help them as much as Jamal Adams is going to pay off. Jamal Adams offers a lot more. He's already proven himself in the NFL. You don't have to take a flyer in the first round on, a couple guys. If you wanted a safety, this was the year to take a safety. I don't think there's going to be many top-tier safeties coming into the league in the next 2 years. So I think
they also have to pay Jamal. You talked about 3 years. You traded all that away. You're gonna have to pay him before you have to franchise tag him. There's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. They're going to have to pay him, maybe not this year, but it will be next offseason. By the end of next offseason, if he doesn't have a new contract, this was the biggest L in Seahawks history. And I'm talking about, throwing an interception on the goal line in the Super Bowl. Like that'll take a backseat, because when you give up all of this, you need to make sure that the generational talent that you are grabbing is going to be in it for the long haul. And even though he put the Seahawks on his list, there's nothing to say that he says, I've always wanted to be a Cowboy. Nothing's changed. I go to the Cowboys, or I want to go to this team, or whatever other team it is. I mean, those are the things that they haven't locked anything up. All they've done is say, we have Jamal Adams now. Cool. You're not a Jamal Adams away from winning a Super Bowl, and I think you've taken a step back in acquiring the other pieces.
But they weren't gonna. They have Jamal Adams, and they may not make the Super Bowl this year. But they weren't gonna make the Super Bowl without him. They're not. They weren't gonna make it next year. They're not gonna make it the year after.
You can't. You don't think that the Seahawks would have made the Super Bowl without Jamal Adams, even if they got other pieces that they needed?
No.
If they got a star receiver and a star pass rusher, you're telling me they couldn't have made a Super Bowl?
That's where I think you're wrong. I think DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are perfect wide receivers. They just got Greg Olsen in the offseason. Yeah, he's old and he has his injuries, but he's part of a group of tight ends. I think that there's plenty of weapons there that they can add. You don't need to just get people in the draft. Free agency is huge, and it gets better every year. I think they're going to be perfectly fine. The salary cap is going to continue to go up, so I don't think the number that Jamal Adams is going to be asking for is going to be unreasonable, and I think they're going to end up paying him. They're probably going to end up paying him before the end of this season.
They're going to have to. Well, they're not going to discuss during the season. They're going to have to discuss next offseason about contracts, or get it done before the start of this season, honestly. But the fact remains is that they are not a Jamal Adams away from the Super Bowl. In fact, I don't believe that DK Metcalf is a number one receiver.
I don't know why you don't think that.
Because he hasn't shown that he can do what Mike Evans can do, or what DeAndre Hopkins can do, or if you gave me a list of number one wide receivers in the league, he would be in the bottom of the bottom. Like, he wouldn't be 32, but he might be 29 or 30. I mean, that's really where he's at right now. He didn't show me anything again, it's a small sample size, but he hasn't shown me that he can take the necessary steps to become the number one target that Seattle needs to be a vertical threat down the field, or be the player that they thought he was in the draft. I didn't see it then. I still don't see it now.
He's a big, fast, strong wide receiver that can go up and get the ball, and he did that all last season. He had over 1,000 receiving yards. He was grabbing everything that was thrown his way. Like, if you have Russell Wilson, he's going to make you look good, but when you have the talent that DK Metcalf has, he was slept on in the draft, dropped to the second round, and he produced like he was a first-round pick last season. As a rookie, he was phenomenal. And I think that if it wasn't for Kyler Murray, he may have been the offensive rookie of the year. But I think that he's going to continue to get better in that system. He, give anybody time with Russell Wilson, and you're going to, be a star. And I think that he's going to end up being a huge star for Seattle. We see Cortland Sutton in his second year last year was going off. He was a top 10 wide receiver in the league. And I think that's exactly the same path that DK Metcalf is on. I think that he's going to fill in that role, and Tyler Lockett's going to take a step back, fall into that nickel role, and I think everything's going to play out well. They're building up that offensive line. They did that this offseason, and now they're bolstering the defense.
That's not anywhere near to a completed project. I mean, Russell Wilson's still going to run for his life. I think we're getting a little off topic here. The fact remains that Jamal Adams is not the be-all and end-all that the Seahawks need to compete for a championship.
I'm not saying he's the last piece
that could possibly get them other pieces that they do need. And in fact, they put all their chips to the table and said Jamal Adams. That's what this deal tells me, is that they put all their chips into the table and said Jamal Adams is the piece we need. That's what the Seahawks are saying with this deal.
I think this deal brings them a lot closer to the Super Bowl than anything in the future would. And this is going to pay off for them now. And instead of having to groom players that are coming in the future, you don't want to have to do that. You're getting the best safety in the league. And I think the safety position is being highly underrated right now. He plays such a huge role. He's the reason they had a few wins last year in New York. I don't think that they may have gone winless without him. He is the only player that has been in New York for such a long time now. And if you put him on a team with other talent, he's going to be right behind Bobby Wagner. I think the two of them on the field, it's going to be extremely hard for any quarterback to throw around them without getting picked off. It's going to be tough, and I think that the Legion of Boom is starting to be rebuilt. And you've got Shaquille Griffin there. You've got the safety they traded for last year from the Lions. They're building that team up. It may not be full of star-studded names, but we didn't know who Cam Chancellor, Earl Thomas, Bobby Wagner, and Richard Sherman were before the Legion of Boom. It just that you have to give these guys a chance, and you're going to see this season that it was the complete right decision for Seattle. And the Seahawks are a contender again, not only in their division, but in the entire Western Conference.
I just completely disagree with the amount of talent that they have to go through. You talked about they're in the toughest possible division in football. And then if they somehow squeak out of that division, somehow they have the likes of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they have the New Orleans Saints, they have whoever decides to come out of the East and the North. I mean, the NFC is so stacked with talent. They are going to struggle. And when you look at some of these teams, I look at Tampa Bay and I look at San Francisco specifically. Those two teams can rush the passer like nobody else. That offensive line isn't going to hold. When you look at Tampa Bay and New Orleans, they have a passing attack that is going to destroy Seattle's. Jamal Adams, as well as good as he is, and I'm not trying to take anything away from what he can do on the football field or in his position. He is one person, and you gave up the possibility of two major pieces on top of a possible third. And that's what you gave up to get him, and then cap space on top of it. So you can't sign any of those missing pieces that you need.
Russell Wilson is getting older, and you can't wait. You don't know when the next time you're going to get a franchise quarterback is, and you're going to lose Bobby Wagner as well pretty soon. So I think that you need to act now while you have something to work off of. And the Seahawks are clearly putting their chips in the center of the table, and they're going all in for the next few years. And I think that this isn't the end of their decisions. I think Jamal Adams is just the first of many to come. So I expect the Seahawks to be very extremely viable contenders in the next 2-3 years, or at least for the next 2-3 years. I think they could give the Buccaneers, the Saints, the 49ers a run for their money even this season. I think they have the power. They got close last year, and I think you're seriously underestimating how much Jamal Adams is going to play a factor for this team.
I don't see it. I saw what he did in New York, and if he can do that in Seattle, then I feel like I'm estimating them properly. If there's I don't think there's anything more than what he did in New York that he can do in Seattle. I think we have seen exactly what he is. He is a ball hawking safety that he can either drop into coverage, or he can be the guy that rushes the passer. He plays the middle of the field. He reminds me a lot of, he's like a mix of Ed Reed and Troy Polamalu. He is a hard hitting safety who can patrol the entire middle of the field by himself. or he can rush the passer, and he can be used in specific packages for a bevy of different things. I understand how he fits in. I'm just saying, in the litany of things that need to happen before they can compete for a championship, he was toward the end of or toward the middle of that list. He was not in the beginning of that list. And I think they gave up too many assets to go and grab a disgruntled player that ended up wanting to be out of there anyway, right? He wanted to leave. He didn't want to play for Adam Gase anymore. It was very apparent. And again, for this reason, I think the Jets won the trade.
Well, that's the thing. I want to go on the flip side of this. We're talking a lot about Seattle and Jamal Adams. Let's talk about the Jets. Let's talk about how they just accrued 2 more first-round picks and a safety that it may start for them.
He'll start opposite Marcus May. Absolutely.
Possibly. I think Ashton Davis is better, but we'll see. I think that it's just they're getting potential, but as we've seen the last few years, they've had so many top 10, top 5 picks, and they've done absolutely nothing with them. Or those players end up leaving or get traded.
They didn't have Joe Douglas calling the shots at that point. The only draft we've seen Joe Douglas have control of, we gave them a freaking A. I mean, the Jets, if they can keep up what they're doing, if Joe Douglas continues on the path that he's doing, the Jets can become formidable in the next 3-4 years. I mean, you need to have the right pieces in place. And when you look at
including a head coach,
I understand that, but that's not under his purview. He doesn't have the ability to take Adam Gase out of that position. That is on ownership. They were the ones who brought him in. They brought him in, and then they brought in Joe Douglas. It's not his guy. He didn't want Adam Gase. He was handed Adam Gase.
I think that as long as Adam Gase is there, this Jets team is not going to go far at all. And I don't expect Adam Gase to be there too much longer. I doubt he'll even make it through this season before he's fired. But I think that even if you bring in someone else, they're going to have an extremely tough time because the Bills are on the rise. Miami is on the rise. Bill Belichick is still in Foxborough. You have fun getting through these teams when you're the only one rebuilding. Like that's just it's a very hard task for any coach to do. It doesn't matter if you get the best talent in the draft each year. You've got to put make it work. Just because you have the best talent doesn't mean it's one cohesive puzzle. It all has to gel, and that takes time. It just doesn't happen overnight. That's why rebuilding in the NFL especially takes multiple years, because people have to create chemistries and develop in the system. It's just,
well, the NFL has by far more moving pieces than any particular sport. I mean, when you talk about an actual team sport where people are relying on one another, the NFL is by far and away the number one when it comes to, a left tackle can do his job, but if the quarterback can't throw, doesn't matter how good the left tackle is. Or a receiver can be great, but if the offensive line can't block and the quarterback has no time, then they're not going to look great.
I think a perfect example to look at is the Oakland Raiders. Right? They traded away Khalil Mack for
Las Vegas Raiders.
Oh, I'm never gonna get that right. But the Las Vegas Raiders traded away Khalil Mack for 2 first-round picks and then some. All right, we've already seen how that played out. They just got a corner that nobody's ever heard of that they took in the first round. I forget who they drafted with that pick last year, but it didn't turn out to be too much. I don't know if it was Jonathan Abrams or one of their other picks, Josh Jacobs maybe. But I just don't see this playing out. Those pieces haven't shown they haven't
right. But I also
shown
don't
up
believe
yet.
Mike Mayock is the best person to be making the choices in the draft that he did. I mean, if you don't make the right choices after getting the opportunity to do so, that's on you. But he put himself in a position to actually acquire insane talent. If you looked at the talent that was on the board, assuming that the players he chose don't work out, you can go back and say, these are the players that were available at that time. They were in a perfect position to have a star-studded roster, but they didn't execute on that. It just because you win a trade doesn't mean that the potential afterward is put on the onus of
Right.
this trade.
And now Joe Douglas and the Jets have taken all the risk. They now have to replace Jamal Adams.
Yep.
And now they have to wait to see if everything pans out. On the other side, Jamal Adams is a proven commodity that will work out for the Seattle Seahawks.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep it $150 with you. I understand that. I understand Joe Douglas has now assumed.
So how can
all
you
the
say
risk.
that Seattle lost this trade? How did the Jets win this trade?
Because they are in a better position moving forward. They now have the ability to create a star-studded roster where Seattle has put all of their chips into Jamal Adams being the key cog that's going to push them over the edge and get them toward a championship. I don't see they're on different cycles. You have to understand that they didn't start in the same spot. Seattle started over here, New York's starting down here. So New York loses a peg or two because they lose their generational talent. So Seattle's bar got raised, and now you have to say, okay, what can they do to get to the top? They don't have any assets to move them there. That's what I'm getting at. New York now built up their assets underneath them that can now propel them. They have the opportunity to become a great team if they execute properly on the assets that created. I don't want to harp on this too much because I think we've gone over it, but look at all the trades that Danny Ainge made for the Celtics in Boston, right? You take everything that he's done and you say he got rid of some really star-studded players. He got rid of, Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett, and he got that insane trade. Yeah, the Nets got a great players. They were toward the end of their career.
It's a very different situation. You're talking about players that were at the end of their career versus Jamal Adams, who hasn't even hit his prime.
But you're also talking about he got assets, and if Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum didn't turn into anything, then it wouldn't have looked as bad for the Nets. But and the flip side is if the Jets turn those players into great players, and Jamal Adams and the Seahawks can't get over the hump, you can't tell me that the Jets didn't win that trade. You just can't. You're telling me that Jamal Adams is the key cog that's going to win them a championship, and I'm telling you he's not. That's the basis of our argument.
And I don't think the two players that the Jets draft with those picks are going to get them over the hump. They're not going to get past the Bills or Miami.
What if they take one of those picks and package it with their own and go get a player like Yannick Ngakoue, which is rumored to be a possibility that they have been exploring? I mean, that is a major piece that they could use. You turn Jamal Adams into Yannick Ngakoue.
Yeah, you have Leonard Williams and Yannick Ngakoue. That's great. But your pass rush, you need to help your secondary. Your secondary, you have no corners to begin with. And now
that's what you have the other picks for. That's what I'm saying. You have more assets.
That's going to take some time.
That's what I'm saying.
Right, but you're also saying trade picks for 2 picks for Yannick Ngakoue. So now you have
better than one of the ones that they got. They have 4. You're saying 2. They have 4 total.
Right. They have. So I get that.
They're back to their starting position, and all they did was change Jamal Adams into Bradley McDougall, and then also get Yannick Ngakoue.
I get that, but I just you can't say that's enough to get them over the hump.
And you also talked about how you think Ashton Davis is one of these guys that we're all sleeping on, that he's going to be a great player. He's going to be thrust into the fold if that's the case. So you're talking about they are in a better position right now than they were with Jamal Adams. I just don't understand how you believe that Seattle won this trade.
I think you just need to look at it rationally and you'll understand.
That is rational.
I don't think so, especially when you look at it from a Jets fan's perspective. They've been through this over and over and over where they've gotten their hopes up because they have so much potential, and then it's just part of the Jets culture where they just mess it up. You know, they can't get out of their own way.
I would love to jump on the troll wagon with you and do that as well, but they
It's not
never
even
had Joe.
being a. I'm not
They never
trying to
had
be a
Joe
troll.
Douglas before this. They never had Joe Douglas before this. Joe Douglas has changed the game for the Jets, and you cannot tell me otherwise.
I'm not sold on Joe Douglas. He may just
Okay,
be a
so
one hit wonder.
that's okay. That's where your issue is. Okay, that we're gonna leave it there. That's where you believe that the Jets falter. You don't believe in Joe Douglas. I don't believe in what the Seahawks have. We're gonna have to leave it there.
Fine, whatever.
All right. Whatever, me ho. All right. We talked a lot about potential, right? Well, there's a lot of potential in Cincinnati right now. They had the number 1 overall pick. They selected former LSU quarterback Joe Burrow. Today, he signed his 4-year, $36.1 million rookie deal. He gets his full signing bonus, which comes in at $23.88 million. He gets the full signing bonus within the first 15 days of signing this contract. Do you think that A, he got overpaid, and B, that the Bengals should be excited about Joe Burrow?
No, I don't think you can really overpay for Joe Burrow. Was it 36 million?
36-1.
Yeah, over 4 years. I mean, you're talking chump change for what quarterbacks get paid this year. This day and age.
Yeah, but he's a rookie.
He's a rookie, but if you look at the system he was in at LSU, it was a pro system. I think he's going to be perfectly fine. I think he's going to translate very, very well and very smoothly. They've already given him a bunch of weapons. He still has AJ Green, and they added T. Higgins, who just signed. I think that those weapons, he's going to perform just fine. I think he's worth every penny, and I don't have any issues with this contract.
Yeah, I think the only staggering number to me is the fully guaranteed signing bonus, paid in full within 15 days of signing the contract. That kind of shocked me a little bit, because usually as a team you like to spread out that money, but I think right now they're willing to take on all of that assets so they can use that money to pay for other players in the future.
Exactly.
They're taking all that money and putting it on this year's cap number instead,
which to me makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, for sure. I'm all for it. I think Cincinnati has a proven winner in Joe Burrow. He got his real first dose of the pros last year when he was a graduate student that didn't go. He took online classes, so he spent day in and day out in the facility learning the game of football, understanding what he needed to do on and off the football field to become a leader, become a quarterback, and become a winner. And he obviously showed it by winning the national championship and becoming a star in front of our eyes. And Cincinnati saw that, and I think they have real hope. They should have hope for the future, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. All right. We're going to break off the NFL because, the NFL isn't happening, but a couple other sports are, including the MLB for now. All right. So the MLB season might be on the brink of collapse as we speak. More than half the Phillies team has, more than half of the Marlins team has tested positive for COVID. The Phillies-Yankees series has been postponed to a to-be-determined makeup date. With the shortened schedule and with everything else that's going on, do you think they're actually going to be able to make up these games?
I think they're going to, if they keep it down, I think if you get more than 5 games, I think that's going to be extremely tough, because you're going to be pushing this season out a week or two, and then it's going to get really tough to continue. I just think that you're putting the players in a tough position, because you just started the season. You had a short spring training, a couple games, and then you got into the regular season. The Yankees played one series against the Nationals, and now you're asking them to take a week off because they're not playing the Phillies, and who knows when they're gonna play next. I don't know if they were supposed to play the Marlins after, or what the situation is, but they teams all, and you've got other teams. The Phillies can't go anywhere until they know for sure. Teams may not want. There's teams that don't want to play the Marlins. The Marlins look like they might just be shut down for the year. I just,
yeah. I mean, the Washington Nationals today voted against going to Miami for their weekend series
Yeah.
against the Marlins. Obviously, so just so everybody knows, the final call is actually made by Major League Baseball, but the Nationals organization has already said, I don't care what Rob Manfred and his office have to say. We're not going to Miami. They cannot force us on a plane. We don't feel safe going there.
Yeah.
So at this point, what is baseball supposed to do? What is Rob Manfred supposed to do? Do you think that we're going to continue to have an MLB season, or should we?
Should we? I think that it was looking bright. I agree with how I felt earlier. Is the MLB rushed the season back way too quick. They were trying to compete with the NBA. They were finally able to agree on a season, which no one expected to happen. And then they were like, oh, okay, we're going to start in 3 weeks. And it was like, what? How are you going to get everything in place? And they clearly didn't. They clearly rushed it back, and it's crumbling before them. It's up to them whether they can revitalize this or not. It's a tough task. It's a tall task. And I'm I'm reluctant to say that the season is going to be over because I'm enjoying what I've seen so far, but it's tough. It's a tough call. If if I had to guess, we're going to see if I'm going to say if we have one more team that tests positive just like the Marlins did, 17 players and staff, then the season's over. You can't have two teams and continue on. But if they can try to control this situation, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, as it stands right now, everything's kind of locked up. The Phillies couldn't play the Yankees. Then the Nationals aren't going to Miami. The Phillies can't play their next series because they don't know if they can travel because they don't know if they can are testing positive. There's so many different outliers that are happening right now. We have our next question is what are the odds that the MLB will actually be able to finish their 60-game season? I put them at a dismal 5%. Honestly, I don't think we finish a 60-game season. I don't think we get to the playoffs. I honestly don't because the MLB is the first and only current playing sport to not have hub cities, and it seemed to work against them. Players don't want to go into hot spots like Florida, aka Miami. They don't want to go, into certain areas, and I'm sure that if things continue where they are in Florida, you're going to see other teams that don't want to go down to Tampa to play the Rays. Then what? Do the Rays have to play all away games? Do they have to find another home? We're in the middle of this. And I think we're at a point right now where we just started, and I think that MLB can say we're going to play a little bit, but nothing's going to count. We're not going to do playoffs. It's just going to be exhibition games. It's just to have some fun, and players can play and they don't have to. But there's really I don't see MLB being able to finish the season out. I think they're in a bad way right now.
You're gonna piss off a lot of players and owners if that happens. And it's up to the MLB to fix this. We still have. I think what the Phillies have to quarantine for 14 days. I'm guessing, no matter what the results is, if they're negative. So say it's 14 days. Now you've got all those teams who are supposed to play the Phillies. That those games get either postponed or canceled altogether, and then you have no one wants to play the Marlins. No matter what happens, they've got to all test negative, and then possibly quarantine even further, and then I'm sure there's going to be plenty of players that don't want to face them, so they're going to be staying back. I know they don't really have the option to opt out at this point, but there's going to be a lot of players that either just skip out on trips or just give up on their season and tell their GMs and owners that, hey, I'm done this season. Like, you don't have to pay me, but I'm done.
Honestly, I think it's going to take the likes of the Steinbrenners or and any of the major owners throughout the league to step up and say, you know what, enough is enough. We tried this; it's clearly not working, and I think we need to just kind of stop and reset for next year. I mean, honestly, They tried it. In my eyes, they tried it. It didn't work. I think it's better to cut it off earlier than later. Make sure that everybody's still safe, and then for next year, maybe set up some hub cities. Maybe that's where we still are. I mean, have a contingency plan in case this still extends until this time next, or the beginning of season next year.
Yeah.
That I don't think that we can have another outing where all of this becomes like where we're continuing to have shortened seasons, where we're continuing to have just the NL East and the AL East can play each other, AL and NL Central and AL and NL West can play each other. Like that's it. I don't think baseball can survive on that. They can't survive on shortened season down to 60 games and all this uncertainty that lies around it. You have a player like Mookie Betts who just signed his 12-year, $365 million contract with the Dodgers. They're going to do everything in their damn power to make sure that he stays healthy and available to them for as long as those 12 years can allow him to.
Yeah, it's going to be extremely tough. And if you think about it, everybody's still saying that COVID is supposed to get stronger as we get into the fall. And it's a lot stronger right now than we expected it to be. And I think if you let players continue playing through the regular season, but then we get to the postseason in September, October, and we gotta cancel the postseason because it's too high of a risk for the players. You're gonna piss off everybody, fans, players, owners, staff, like everybody. You've worked so hard to keep this going. 60 games you played, and you get nothing at the end. Like so I think you're right. They have to choose now whether to be all in or just all out or be all out. And I think it's the safer and easier decision to say we're all out.
Yeah, and I think they would be praised by a lot of people to say, you know what, the league actually cares about the players. They care about player safety. They care about the safety of those around the players, including staff and management and everybody else. We need to limit travel. We need to limit interaction between people. I mean, yeah, it was cool to see the Pirates manager and the umpire get into it, but before they could get into it, they both had to put their masks on, and the Pirates manager held out his hand to make sure that he was 6 feet apart. I mean, that was cool, but once was enough for me. Like, I don't need to see that again. Like, that's a once in a lifetime thing that I really wanted to see.
Yeah.
After that, this isn't it. Baseball, I feel like the players aren't even into it. I mean, just watching how they're reacting to certain things, and
they're kind of joking about it.
It doesn't feel like baseball. It doesn't feel like a professional sport. It just feels like they're playing and trying to provide a escape for people. But at this point, I think that it needs to be shut down.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to say that anything so far has felt like a professional sport. Even whether you talk about the NBA, the UFC, the baseball, like it just without fans, it's not gonna be the same, and it's not gonna feel professional. But I think that they're just everybody's kind of being a little careless, in my opinion. A lot of the players, you see them, just mocking the whole situation, and I understand like they don't want to be subjected to not being able to be next to each other, like someone's on first base and they're pushing the first baseman away from them so they keep their distance. Like that it's all fun and games until it's serious, and right now it's serious. And if we see any of these other players, like if we saw a Marlins player doing that to a Phillies player, we would have thought nothing about it in the moment. But right now, we'd be pissed at them. We still don't know. We may be. We don't know what the circumstances are.
Hell, I mean, Chicago Cubs first baseman Anthony Rizzo is literally handing out hand sanitizer at first base to the base runners. I mean, because the players are all about their safety, and they're not about the game. They're just not. If you look at the teams, they're not into it. And I think you need to just push off contracts by a year. You need to you need to have just a year built out and say, you know what, we tried it this year. There will be no actual baseball. And nobody's going to fault you for trying. They're going to fault you for continuing on with something that didn't work and making it look like a joke. And the last thing that Major League Baseball needs is to be looked like a joke. We went on last week and talked about all the different things that Major League Baseball needs to do to be recognized as a relevant sport by the generic sports viewer again. This is one of them. They need to make a stand. They need to be the first team to the first league to do something. This would be the first league to say, you know what, we're canceling the season due to COVID-19. We're going to just stop the presses. We're going to start over next year. We're going to set up protocols for next year as long as this continues. Maybe set up some hub cities like the NBA and the NHL have done, and we're gonna start working on everything that we need to for next year. You hit the nail on the head. They rushed back. It's not the way.
Yeah.
No go.
Yeah, I think for the safety of everybody and just for everybody to kind of stay calm, end the season. It's not worth the craze that this is starting to cause, and I think that it's becoming an even bigger detriment than it should have been. I don't. Yeah. We shouldn't have had the season to begin with. The players and the owners couldn't come to an agreement. It's the decision to have a 60-game season seemed forced, and then it seemed the whole situation was rushed back in order to compete with the NBA restarting. And I think that it was just set up to fail from the beginning, and we're seeing the results of their actions.
I mean, look at the NHL. Let's just I don't want to beat this dead horse too much. Look at the NHL. They took their time. They set up hub cities. They put them in spots where they are clearly non hot spots. Both hub cities are in Canada, by the way, for those who don't know. And they're all ready to go. They did a wide sweep test of every single player, staff member, everything. 0 positive tests. That's incredible for an entire league of players. They all of them have tested. None of them have tested positive. That's incredible. You have an entire organization basically testing positive in baseball, and half the players in the NBA don't know what the hell they're doing. At least one that we know of, is going to a gentleman's club for dinner. I mean, at some point you got to know that you're taking it seriously, and also you have to understand that, you know what, if it's just not working, it's just not working. NHL has done it right. The NBA seems to be doing it right, even though some of the players are, going batshit crazy. At the end of the day, baseball just it's time. It really is time.
Yeah.
I talked about how owners need to step up. Well, there is a new owner in MLB. He's a part owner, and we talked a little bit about him before. You might know him. Super Bowl MVP quarterback Patrick Mahomes decided to invest some of his $500 million contract into the Kansas City Royals, and he is now a part owner of the Royals organization. He's the first ever American athlete to have stake in a team during their own playing career, and he's also the youngest owner in sports history. So I believe he's 24 years old at the current state of things. It's incredible that he's a minority stake owner in another pro sports franchise. So props to him. Congratulations to Patrick Mahomes. That's truly incredible what he's been able to do financially. And it provides him stability, and it provides a little ease of mind to Kansas City fans, because now that he has some actual ties to the city of Kansas City, they shouldn't be
they shouldn't be worried at all. Yeah.
So I think that's where we're going to leave it for this week. There was a ton of news that came out today. We continue to break news on our Twitter. We have information that we hear from sources that we put out on there. We talk with some of you guys. I know some of you guys have reached out to us, and we have talked right back to you. We're right there in the comments, so we do engage with our community. We love that. We want more of you guys to do that. Start if you guys want, please share our content, clip it, do whatever you need to do. Use our information, use our knowledge to prove your friends wrong and show them that you are the superior sports knowledge amongst your friend group. We would love to see that. And if you guys have any information or like us to cover any topics, feel free to let us know. Our Twitter, our website, you can hit us up on either one of those. You can always comment on the YouTube. Um, all of our links are going to be in the description on the YouTube page, and be sure to like, comment, subscribe if you like our channel. We're going to try to feature some of your comments moving forward. If you guys are interested in that, let us know. But we'd love to hear from you guys. We'd love to talk more sports with you, and hopefully we'll be able to do so. So until next week, we will see you later.